Hey everybody, it's Romania Black, and we are on episode 17 of Moriarty the Patriot, the Riot in New Scotland Yard. So, it's interesting that we have the Riot in New Scotland Yard, because when we last left off, we just resolved our Jack the Ripper. Bonde is officially part of the crew. He's integrated. Him and Moran are besties. They're sharing drinks. It's great. And old Jack got his name cleared. And we got introduced to a new character, old Charles, who looks interesting. That's a new antagonist to, I'm assuming, both Moriarty and is probably going to be Sherlock's antagonist as well. That's interesting. And at the very end there, we had the chief of Scotland Yard, and he was getting really flustered about stuff because he was having to, basically the Jack the Ripper ordeal had not been resolved in his favor. And then Paterson, or Paterson, however you pronounce his name, was looking all suspicious at the end. And I was like, So I don't know how to feel about that. But I had taken about a week off from recording early with Sherlock and Moriarty. So I'm back and I'm ready to dive into this. I'm pretty excited. I'm excited for the manga. Now, I'm watching this, I'm like on the same episode count with Yona of the Dawn and Moriarty. With Yona of the Dawn, its manga is ongoing and is very much ongoing. Like the Yona of the Dawn series ends with like manga volume 8 and is now at like 33 or 34. So when I get done with Yona, I am going to react to the manga for that. With Moriarty, it's a little different because it is ongoing like Yona. But with Moriarty, the story is weaved into, it's not been linear. Like there's been arcs y'all have told me have been left out of Moriarty and then it's gone forward. So I don't really want to do a manga reaction to Moriarty because I feel like a lot of the ground's going to already be covered. But I do want to do like a soapbox-esque Moriarty manga review. I do want to read the manga after I'm done with the series and then do like a review later on while I'm watching another series and get to it that way. Because I do want to read the manga and note like differences and things like that and stuff that was left out and my thoughts on it. But I don't think I'll do a reaction like I'll do with Yona for the manga just because it's not linear in the same way. But just to put that out there because I have had some people ask about it and I was like, well. So but anyway, I'm pretty excited to see this episode, so we're not going to waste any more time. I've been waiting all day, and I'm like, I'm finally going to watch this episode and dive into it, so let's just do the darn thing. So we're going to start episode 17 of Moriarty the Patriot here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Holy cow, this episode was really good. I loved this. This was amazing. I'm all for it. I'm on board. It was a nice transition from episode 16 into this. It was a standalone episode, but it could connect episode 16 with the Jack the Ripper too. Kind of like this is kind of like an epilogue to the Jack the Ripper case. But there's lots of stuff going on. I absolutely love. Okay, so what I'm looking forward to in the manga is definitely seeing more with Albert and Mycroft. Definitely looking forward to seeing more with them because I'm a big shipper in shows. I'm a multi-shipper and I for sure ship Albert and Mycroft. Like just their dynamic is so intriguing and I want to see more of it. And several of you have said that the manga has more of it. So I am excited to see that. But just to note, the color green in this episode is everywhere. The whole thing with Mycroft, when it's Mycroft and Albert talking to each other, the velvet in the chairs are green, the books are green, the molding is green, the maps are green. It's like Albert just dyes everything in arsenic. It's kind of insane. But I love the talk about these two eldest brothers and their younger brothers they have to worry about. Like I said in the reaction, Lewis is not a problem. Lewis can take care of himself. It's Mycroft has to look out for Sherlock. Albert has to look out for Moriarty, for William. And I like the idea that Mycroft is like, well, your plan went on without a hitch. And you were able to unite Scotland Yard and the civilians and stop a vigilante revolution riot breakout. So Mycroft is like, is this a brief glimpse into your Moriarty plan that you guys are wanting to set in motion and are seemingly about to? And Albert's kind of like, he's very tongue-in-cheek about it. He's like, well, maybe, kind of. But yeah. And yeah, the incident isn't over yet. That's kind of what this whole episode does about it. I can't get over how much Mycroft looks like Sherlock, just a totally different persona and everything. But yeah, Michael Dwight, he's the guy that's suspected of being Jack the Ripper. And I like this idea that Moriarty's like, someone's trying to undermine us. Nope, not gonna have it. So it was really, this plan was not only to free the innocent civilian and to punish Arthurton, but it also was to get somebody from Moriarty's group, from their organization on the inside, to take over Scotland Yard. And it just happened to all work out, and Paterson was the perfect person to move in and take the role. And as soon as I got that hint from Paterson in the last episode, but watching this episode, I was like, oh no, Paterson fits in perfectly with the Moriarty crew. He's classy, but he also has that like underlying like kind of manipulative quality about him that you're like, oh, you'll fit in great with William and all them. I love it. And I love Bond just being like, let me do all these missions now, please. And so then, yeah, and Albert acknowledges to Mycroft that just as your younger brother was chosen, we will allow the case to go unsolved. We will allow the case to go unsolved and forgotten. And, so yeah, he's like, Sherlock will get involved, won't he? And I like the idea that he's like, Mycroft says you and your brothers do fine work together. And Albert's like, well, make sure you carry on well with your own brother. And Mycroft's like, I can't control him. That all depends on him. He's in charge of his own self. And I love that Sherlock is self-aware that he's being led on. I love in this episode that Sherlock realizes that he's being pulled around like a puppet. He's finally realized what the situation is. And of course Sherlock's not happy about it. He's like, I don't have any choices because all my choices are being made for me by Moriarty. So I like that Sherlock has figured it all out. And then at the end, Sherlock is faced with this moral conundrum. He's like, yeah, technically, the Moriarty group, they are like a Robin Hood group. They're fighting for the common civilian. He's like, but they're committing crimes in doing so. So there's a problem. Mycroft doesn't seem to find a problem in it. Mycroft's like, as long as you don't step out of line, we're good. But Sherlock is more morally centered, I think, towards justice and the right than Mycroft is. Mycroft has some of that political government corruption in him where he fits in with the Mycroft crew, and Sherlock is not like that at all. He's like, no. But yeah, this episode is so good. I love the idea of Paterson having this relationship with both Lestrade and Bond. Because Lestrade, bless his heart, oh my God, that punch from Arthurton to his face, that was a slap. That was awful. And Lestrade, being our lawful good knight in shining armor, like Lestrade is so pure and he's so simple-minded, but his heart is in such a good place that you just can't help but like Lestrade. He's so kind in this, and he just wants to do the right thing no matter what. And Paterson is a very handsome character. He kind of has that Ray from Free vibe, only a little bit more sneaky and seductive. I don't know. There's something about Paterson that he's very well drawn in his voice acting too. I know I've heard that voice from somewhere. And I'm sure you'll comment down below in the comments. But yeah, I like Paterson's character a lot. And I think he fits in with the Moriarty crew perfectly. And I love that shot of Lestrade and Paterson looking down on Arthurton like, just what a douche you are. And the whole thing with the secret ledger and everything, putting Arthurton in the green. I find it curious that usually when this show wants to portray someone like in a negative light, they put them in a green light. And then it contrasts with William, who's always like in a red light because of his eyes. But Albert's always in a green light. So it's curious because Albert's not portrayed as evil. So it's very curious. But Paterson has the deep green eyes too. So we're connecting all the shades of green together, right? But yeah, I also think it's hilarious that Paterson, who wants to be discreet and doesn't want to be noticed, meets Bond I thought originally Bond was going to meet up with Sherlock because Lestrade had mentioned it, but no, that Paterson was going to meet up with Sherlock. But no, he meets up with Bond and kind of gets, initiated into the organization. But yeah, of course, Bond has to make a scene. He ain't going to just show up somewhere and not be flashy. So shows up in the big fancy car that Herder gave him and shows up with the nice fancy suit, makes a scene in the bar, which we find out was an ulterior motive to get locked up so that he could get into the Scotland Yard. Genius. All makes sense. I also like Herder's character a lot. I'm curious how he does anything with the blindfold on, but maybe it's pretty see-through. Maybe it's just to hide his identity more than anything. But yeah, I just love their conversation, and I'm a whiskey brandy person, so upon occasion. So I'm not a bitter person though. So the whole thing of 3 bitters, I'm like, oh, that sounds like too much. But I like that I do like maraschino. So yeah, I'm like, I would probably get the Paterson and try it just once to say that I did. But I love their conversation. And I would honestly ship Bonde and Paterson. They both have that, like, they're very smart characters. They're very smart and, like, gung-ho intellectuals. So I'm like, yeah, I could see it. But this episode was so good. But yeah, so building up so many different things. And then what else we've got in here? The whole thing with Sherlock, right? And Bonde knows that Sherlock is coming and going to be involved in all this, right? And so I love the idea that Sherlock, whenever Bonde goes past Sherlock, there's that moment, Sherlock's eyes don't move, but there's that moment where Bonde goes by and Bonde knows it's Sherlock. And you wonder for a second if Bonde thinks that Sherlock noticed him. I think Sherlock did. I think Sherlock noticed that it was someone with Moriarty's group. Now, whether or not Sherlock realized that it was Bonde, aka Irene, I don't know if Sherlock acknowledged that specifically, but I think Sherlock knew that whoever was going past in that moment had the ledger, one, in their hands and was working with Moriarty, and that's why he let them go. Because around this time, Sherlock's realizing that he's being played by William and the group too, and so he's like, well, if it's gonna get this person out of jail and save this innocent person's life, then I'm going to go along with the plan, because what else can I do? Right? And so I do think that Sherlock recognized, I don't think Sherlock knew it was Bonde, but I think Sherlock knew it was somebody with Moriarty. Yeah. And Sherlock is realizing in this moment that if he interferes, Moriarty has him pretty much cornered, because Sherlock's like, if I interfere and try to solve it a different way and don't go along with Moriarty's plan, then this case might not get solved and this person might not get free. He's like, so I'm kind of trapped. I can't make any different choices. I have to go along. This person is knowing my every move and I have to go along with it, because otherwise I'm not going to be able to save this individual. And it's like, I feel for Sherlock, because it sucks knowing that you're just kind of like being played. But Sherlock's like, it's for the greater good. And I think that's what's so frustrating to him. Right? But yeah, the expressions on Sherlock in this, Sherlock is just so not having it. He's like, I'm done. No. And poor Watson. Watson's like, what are we doing? What's going on, Sherlock? And Sherlock's like, we're getting played and I don't like it. So I don't know what Bonde did to knock them out. I guess it was like an air bullet or an air pistol or something, because or maybe a tranquilizer, because they all woke up. So he clearly didn't kill them. But yeah, it's great getting the ledger and getting Arthurton, and then the whole reveal that Paterson is taking over Scotland Yard and accepted the proposition, accepted the promotion. So yeah, that's what Moriarty, it all makes sense that what Moriarty wanted the whole time was to get somebody on the inside of Scotland Yard to take over in the police. And then the corrupt police officers were let go, including Arthurton. So yeah, it's all coming together, like drain the swamp, get the corruption out, and start over, and Paterson's going to be in charge. And at first I thought that Lestrade would step up, but one, that's not what Moriarty wants, because Lestrade's too lawful good, he's too pure. But also Lestrade having a little bit more freedom to pursue the cases that he wants to is interesting. It makes sense for his character. And then Sherlock at the end here is figuring out, he's like, in both situations, the Moriarty Association inserted themselves into the crime and into the situation, and they solved each case more favorably than I would have. That's what frustrates Sherlock. He's like, he's got competition. And the truth that can be derived from this is that he is a Robin Hood. There's no mistake in that. But he's also a criminal. And Sherlock's like, I hate it. I don't know what to do with this information. And I love that it zooms in on it. Yeah. And so Sherlock's like, is there an ulterior motive? Was it just to rescue the innocent citizens, set them free? Or was there something else to their agenda? And the answer is yes, there was something else to their agenda. And that was getting somebody inside on Scotland Yard. That was it. But yeah, and then we get at the end. At the end, we get old Paterson and Lestrade sitting there getting their 2 Paterson drinks. And the bartender's like, gotcha. And that girl's back there reading. And it looks like she has the drink too. I like it. I like everybody's getting the Bonde. Everybody's getting the Paterson that Bonde suggested. It's great. But yeah, I love it. This episode was really, really good. I don't have much more to say about it. It was just a really solid episode. And I'm curious to know what the big plan is. Because we're on episode 18 next. And we've got 24 episodes. So we've got 6 episodes left. We're nearing, if we looked at this as a 3-act structure, then every 8 episodes would be the 3 acts. So we're in the 3rd act now. Episode 16 would have been the start of the 3rd act in this 24 episode season. So we're in the 3rd act now. We're entering towards getting ready to ramp up to the climax of the series. I don't know what the overall Moriarty plan. We know that it entails overthrowing the corrupt aristocracy and getting the civilians to have a higher place in society. We get that. But the question is, what all is this final Moriarty plan going to entail? That's what I'm curious about. And we don't quite know the answer to that yet. I'm assuming next episode we're going to start there. And then what's Sherlock going to do about it? What's Sherlock and Watson going to do? Lestrade seems to have a little bit more free reign, but the person bossing Lestrade around is also working with Moriarty. So, and he doesn't even know it, right? Lestrade doesn't even know that it's working. Paterson is an interesting character because he's writing the line. Paterson understands that Lestrade is using the consulting detective, Sherlock, to solve the crimes, but he also knows the consulting criminal. So Paterson's like riding that middle line of using both Lestrade and Moriarty. And my question too is, where does Charles fall in? Because we just met him in the last episode. Where does he fall into all this? Is Paterson working with him as well? I don't know. Paterson gives me like I love Paterson's character, but he also gives me kind of like if it suits my best benefit, I'm going to do it vibe, whether that's working with Moriarty, whether that's working with Lestrade, or this other guy. I'm curious how the other guy, we've only met him for 1 episode. He's obviously going to come back in the 9th hour here. So where's he going to tie into all this at? That's also I'm curious about as well. So, I don't know, but I really like this episode. I hope you all enjoyed this reaction too. I am curious to know your thoughts down below, but yeah, I'm pretty excited for Act 3, the 3rd act of the season, and then to get into the manga afterwards. I'm really excited. So in the meantime, I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'm going to be back next week with episode 18 of Moriarty the Patriot. Bye.